Your second short essay is coming up. It's going to be due April 19th at midnight. Please make certain to turn it in on time. I don't allow late papers. You guys already know this. I want MLA formatting, double space, 12-point font, works cited page, absolutely. I've been putting the MLA for all your readings, the podcast, anything that I have up there on that page. If I forgot one, please let me know and I'll make certain to put it up there for you. Hopefully by now you guys have all read the Milgram and you've listened to the podcast. So you understand what I'm going for here. So there's going to be two topics you can choose from. One will be based on the Milgram reading, the behavioral study of obedience, and the other one's going to be based on the podcast. What I want you to do is take the Milgram experiment, and I want you to compare them, or contrast, whichever you decide to do, to another philosopher we've discussed. So for this first one, take the Milgram study and compare it to Thompson or Nagel or Green or Aristotle. And it's important that you only choose maybe one or two. Don't try to do them all. That makes a very, very weak argument because you're not going to spend much time on each one. So what we're looking for is that you really develop an argument. So like with Thompson talks about doing versus allowing harm. And in the experiment, you have individuals who don't really know what they're doing because they don't actually see the person being in pain. All they see is they hear someone being in pain. So that makes it different as to whether or not they're actually doing the harm or if they're just allowing the harm to happen because they're following the orders. Nagel talks about the moral luck. He also talks about the idea that the agent must be in control. So if the agent is not in control, then we can't blame them. So then you have to ask yourself, in that experiment, were the participants in control? Could they have just walked out? And you guys know he has many different experiments he used. It's actually a really interesting read. Green, he's a neuroscientist from the other podcast I had you listen to. And this one is talking about the idea, are we using the emotional part of our brain? Are we using the rational part of our brain? Or are we simply just going with strong emotions? So remember, you don't push the fat man off the bridge because the emotional part of your brain clicks in and says, no, you're not going to hurt your fellow man. Well, in the experiment, you don't see the person actually being in pain. So there is that distance between you two, and you can definitely explore that. And of course, Aristotle is going to be the idea of the habit and whether or not you are following the virtues when you are inside the experiment. So you may want to argue that the virtuous thing to do would have been to just never participate in the experiment or walked out of the experiment. Okay? Now, what I've done down here is I've given you some ideas of how to develop your argument. You do not have to follow this. It's just we're not in the classroom for me to help you out as much this time, so I'm trying to give you more guidance. And this one down here, you can use the same arguments for all of these. It's just going to be in reference to the podcast. Okay? If you guys have questions, please email me. And I'm happy to respond. I've put up some notes for you. And honestly, you guys are doing great in the discussions. I'm really enjoying reading through them. I'm not participating unless I need to. I'm just letting you guys do your thing. So it's kind of like in the classroom where when you guys were talking and had a good conversation going, you saw me just step back. So far, you guys have been doing a fabulous job. And it's actually working better online than it was in the classroom. But yeah, otherwise... one last thing. I have now uploaded all the modules. It's missing a few rubrics, but that's all. So if you want to start working ahead, I'm happy with that. That's perfectly fine. All right.